Hey guys, how you doing today? Just got off work, making a video. I think I'm going to do a continuation video. Yesterday's video was about Andrew Shearer, oh my goodness. Whoa, I'm living in the past. Erin O'Toole, and outright telling him he needs to purge his party of fascists. And of course, the day I make this that video is the day that Erin O'Toole goes after Derek Sloan in his party. This isn't exactly what I'm talking about, but it's definitely an acknowledgement from Erin O'Toole that he has to do something to change his public image. That we have him on tape saying that Canada First is the same as America First from Donald Trump. And ever since the January 6th insurrection, it's become obvious that the Conservative Party needs to backtrack, needs to backpedal significantly. And so Erin O'Toole has chosen to go up against Derek Sloan. Now, before I even talk about this, Derek Sloan is a fascist. Like, if anybody needs to be expelled from the Conservative Party and from Canadian politics generally, it's Derek Sloan. This is a gentleman who wants to move forward with conversion therapies. He wants to lift conversion therapy bans. He wants to put in legislation to punish protesters, punish people who are taking to the streets in order and using their rights in order to protect Canada, protect this land. He wants to go against, he's outright said that he wants to go up against anti-fascists. And if you're anti-fascist, what does that make you? Pretty black and white if you ask me. He's definitely a climate change denier. He's definitely, I mean, for goodness sakes, this is the guy who told the Minister of Health to go back to China. Like, Derek Sloan's a piece of work and he needs to be ejected from the Conservative Party, and I'm going to say that straight out. However, it's the method by which Erin O'Toole is going about this. Like, what the Conservatives legitimately actually need to do is have a genuine purge of the fascists in their party. They need to make a clear declaration of what their standards are, of what fascism is, of what they don't accept, and they need to look at the many members who exist in their party, as well as the many media outlets that the Conservatives are willing to dabble in. I'm looking at you, Rebel Media, and they need to make conscious, clear efforts to get these forces out of this party completely. They need to cull. It needs to be a culling. Because right now, what I'm seeing is just kind of a scapegoating, right? It's like a scapegoating to protect the herd. That they're putting up a sacrificial lamb in the body of Derek Sloan and saying to Canadians, will this convince you? Will this do? And honestly, no. It won't. Not me. Certainly not me. You don't get to play this game for 20, 30 years where you cater to the most radical racists and the farthest right fascists that you can find, and then suddenly turn around and say, no, we don't like those people. Here's one guy. No. This does get into a big conversation of, well, what would be acceptable, right? When will it be enough? Which is always a question that comes out of the mouths of conservatives once we start talking about the fascists that are among them. And I don't want to be an ideological purist, which I think is a fault of the left. And I'm willing to outright state that a fault of the left is ideological puritanism, and it's something that the left struggles with and is going to have to come to terms with if it wants to organize itself. But I'm making other videos on that subject later. What would be enough? Actual conversation, actual tribunals, and I do mean tribunals. I'm not throwing that word around. They need a culling. It needs to be a purging. And it needs to be an admission of guilt, an apology, a genuine apology to the people of Canada, right? There needs to be more than what we're seeing from the Conservatives. Because what we're seeing now is Erin O'Toole standing up and saying of Derek Sloan, oh, he accepted a $131 donation from a neo-Nazi. And of course, I mean, Derek Sloan, he doesn't vet the people who give him money. He's not sitting there being like, is this a neo-Nazi? Is this a neo-Nazi? Is this a neo-Nazi? No, and of course the second Derek Sloan found out, he returned the money, right? He returned the money because he's not a total idiot, right? And this is the sticking point that Erin O'Toole is standing on. This is what Erin O'Toole is doing. He is going after a political rival, by the way, somebody who ran against him in the previous Conservative run-up. He's going against a political rival with this really, really, really pathetic swing. And it is a pathetic swing because it's not rooted in any kind of ideological argument. It's not rooted in any kind of anti-racist or anti-Nazi or anti-anything, right? There's no meat on those bones. There's nothing there that convinces me that Erin O'Toole is doing anything other than putting up a theatrical ritual of sacrifice against Derek Sloan. And what could be a total disaster, by the way, because Erin O'Toole doesn't just get to point at somebody and be like, you're out of the party. It goes to a vote in the Conservative caucus. And the Conservative caucus, they might not vote to get rid of him, right? They might keep him. And that would be an abject disaster for Erin O'Toole and this gambit, frankly, that he's playing in order to try and sway the populace away from this narrative that is correct, incidentally, that the Conservative Party is fostering fascists and far-right radicals in its ranks. And it has all the appearance and all the look of when Erin O'Toole came out and said the Conservative Party is the party of the workers, that he wants to work with unions, right? Nobody took that seriously. No one bought it. Why? Because the Conservatives for the last 40 years have absolutely decimated workers' rights. Every Conservative that's gotten into power in the last 40 years has done everything they could to undercut the working class, has done everything they could to make life harder for the working class. And suddenly you're going to come out and say, oh no, we're a party of the workers. Prove it. Prove it, right? Just in the same way that if you want to prove that you're actually interested in getting rid of the far-right radicals and there's actually no place for them in the Conservative Party, well, you have to have a culling. You have to set principles, set guidelines, and actually go after people in your party who do not meet those principles. You need to stop going on to rebel media. You need to stop participating in, you need to stop being interviewed by far-right radicals. You need to call these people out. You need to say what they are, and you have to actually put your feet into it, right? Whereas Erin O'Toole basically just taking a weak swing against Derek Sloan because some guy who happened to be a neo-Nazi gave him money, who incidentally got the money back. Like, it's so weak. It oozes weakness, and it oozes theatrics, and it oozes this kind of petty politics. Like, we don't believe you. All right, that's what it comes down to, bud. Like, Erin O'Toole, if you're watching this, I hope you are. We don't believe you, right? And why should we? We've been kicked in the teeth by your party for the last 40 years, while you've given everything possible over to corporate corporate donors, and now suddenly you're going to turn around? No. If you want me to believe you, you got to start culling. And if you want me to start believing you on this worker file, well, put forward some legislation, bud. Like, put forward some legislation. You're in a minority government situation. You know who would be sympathetic to legislation that is pro-worker? You know who would be sympathetic to that kind of thing? The NDP. And if you reached across the aisle to the NDP and you said, hey, here's some pro-worker legislation, NDP, and they didn't grab hold, you could literally shrug and be like, look, we're trying to work with these parties. It would gain you a great deal of sympathy. It absolutely would. But you're the one that's going to have to prove it. Because as far as the nation is concerned, you work for corporations exclusively. And the workers are just there to serve you. right? That's the truth. And just because you stood up and said, oh, we're the party of the working class, doesn't mean anything. And just because you've stood up and said there's no place for far-right radicals in our party doesn't mean anything. Prove it. And we need more than these little theatrics. Like, we've watched House of Cards. We've watched Game of Thrones. We've watched these political dramas, bud. We know what you're doing. We're well aware that what you're doing is scapegoating. We need more. We need way more than that if you want to have a hope in hell at seizing any kind of power in this country. And it would be easy. Here's a great one for you, bud. Here's legislation that is incredibly popular. 75% of Canadians support it, right? That's, if you haven't noticed, as most people, support a basic income. You think that's crazy? Huh? You think it's crazy that a conservative would actually do that? Well, then why is Stephen Harper the prime minister that passed the child care benefit, which is a basic income for children? You literally could stand up in front of the nation and say, the child care benefit is a conservative policy passed by Stephen Harper that was a resounding success, and the basic income is a cheaper, more efficient, smaller government way of dealing with poverty, and it has roots in the Conservative Party because of the conservative senator Hugh Segal. We should pass this legislation, and so we here at the Conservative Party put this bill forward, and we hope that our NDP friends will go along with it. But we know you won't, because we know you're not serious. Well, that's what it comes down to, right? We know that Erin O'Toole is not a serious politician. We know that this is theatrics. We know that this is bullshit. And we know he works for corporate power. That's what it comes down to. And all that is happening is that his corporate owners have said, you got to trick some of these workers. You got to trick some of these centrists. You got to deceive and manipulate these people in order to attain power so that you could crush them under your boot like we've been doing for the last 40 years. That's what's going on in the Conservative Party right now. And it's sad. It's sad because I would love to have a viable Conservative Party, right? Stephen Harper was a better prime minister than Justin Trudeau by a mile. Stephen Harper put in the childcare benefit, right? Stephen Harper's trade deals have been nothing but good for Canada, right? The legacy that Stephen Harper has left behind is going to last for decades and decades and generations unless somebody stops it. What's the legacy of the Trudeau administration? Legal pot? Ooh, legal pot. Ooh. Right? Erin O'Toole, you have a real opportunity to do something meaningful here, but you're going to have to start actually fighting, right? You're a military man, right? You're a veteran. Fight for real and not for corporations. All right, guys, if you like these videos, there are a ton of ways that you can support me. The easiest and freest way for you to do it is to just hit that like button. It just ping it. Doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't mean anything. But it matters to the YouTube algorithm, and that sends it around, and more people get to see me just by you going bing. I like that button. If you want to put more skin in the game, you can actually share this on your social media. That's my preference because word of mouth is the number one way. I'm trying to grow this channel. Trying to get it up to 1,000 subscribers. That's when I start to monetize. Speaking of monetization, if you actually want to put money in my pocket, my Patreon is in the description below. $1. If you watch these videos regularly, if you're one of my regular watchers, do think about putting $1 my way. It's $1. It's that's not even a Timmy's coffee. That's nothing, right? And because if enough people start giving me $1, then I can start doing this full-time, guys. And this is what I'm doing while I'm working a full-time job at a toy store. Imagine what I can do if I was actually doing this full-time. Make this my full-time job, guys. I love you all. I love you all. You're all doing really well, okay? These are scary times. These are dark times. These are strange times. And we need to be organizing. We need to be coming together. We need to be fighting harder than we've ever fought before, because guess what, guys? It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better unless we actually come together, fight against the forces that are attempting to crush us, and make it better. Good luck. We're going to need it.